This is Two Idiots, One Podcast, and I'm Bailey.
And I'm Taylor. And before we start this, Bailey, I just kind of wanted to talk to you about something because I don't know, man, it's kind of weird. But have you ever had this, relationship with someone and then you break up with them? And after you break up with them, there's like this lingering presence around, you know? Like, you ever just, I don't know, in the middle of the night, things happen. Maybe you're sleepwalking, maybe you're not. I don't know, but you feel like they're there.
No, that's never happened to me in that specific way, but I kind of know what you mean. Just like a feeling deep inside of you that they're still with you, and sometimes you be like hearing their voice and
Or
maybe seeing them do stuff when they aren't there for whatever reason.
yeah, like you're laying there and you think that you're texting them or something, but in reality you're probably just hallucinating because you're really upset. I mean, I don't know if that's just me, if that's ever because like that happened to me, and I just didn't want to be alone, I guess, and was looking for comfort. So,
Huh. Did you practice anything to like help you find comfort, like meditation or?
well, I mean, yeah, I kind of read a book.
Oh, really? What kind of book was it?
I don't remember the name of the book per se, but it was. I mean, you know how when you're really upset about something, sometimes you just kind of dive straight into the extreme side of it, like, I don't know, occultism.
Right. So instead of like going to a grief counselor and, talking to them and you just going directly into like, oh, I'm going to summon the devil to square everything away for me.
Yeah, or to like win her back, because you're reading about how if you say this stuff, do this stuff, make this statue, blah blah blah, you can get them back because you want them back. So you're like,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I recognize that feeling.
because I may have done that a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I bought a few books.
Okay.
Um, kind of went to the extreme end of it and started thinking about everything in reverse. So there's that.
In reverse, almost like a mirror world.
I mean, yeah, I guess
Hmm.
trying to like reverse everything and see what I did wrong.
Right.
Looking in and figuring it out. Breakups are weird.
No, I feel that. But breakups are even weirder when they end in death.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, all relationships, marriages end in one of two ways, death or breakup. And I feel like breakup is a slightly better solution because if it ends in death, then you could come up with a night house scenario, which is the movie we're going to be talking about today.
You know, I like Night House.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty solid movie.
What would you say you rate it?
On like the Roger Ebert scale?
The Roger Ebert scale. We need to get like music or something where it just sings the Roger Ebert scale.
That would be fun.
That would be fun.
Just have like a symphony.
A symphony in the background going the Roger Ebert scale.
Well, I think that would be a chorus. A symphony is
No,
generally on
well,
instruments.
dude. Okay, yes, but you have to have a chorus with it too.
Of course.
Like you can't just have the entire orchestra. Come on, there's always that one dude singing, the a cappella person.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
But I would probably give this movie a 3.5.
funny you should say that because I looked on RogerEbert.com because I just wanted to see what Roger Ebert said, and honestly, I don't agree with him. He kind of agrees with you. He gave it a 3 out of 5.
Ooh,
He had some things to say about it. I thought it was about a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it.
okay.
So I was the opposite. You're kind of in the middle, but I rated it a little bit higher than what Roger Ebert did.
Okay. What were the reasons for your score being where it is? Like major takeaway reasons.
So so I had to watch it twice, okay? Because the first time I watched it, if I had just watched it one time, the way that I would summarize this film is a woman is very upset that her husband kills himself, and then he miraculously comes back and starts to interact with her through the world that she's in. and everybody thinks that she's crazy, and then she finally touches him, his spirit form, I guess. Yeah, I know how that sounded. I regretted it as soon as I said it.
No, it finally touches him. That sounds nice.
But yeah, she like finally touches him and grasps him, and then all of a sudden she realizes that it's not him, and it's like this entity who's out to get her, and he was being controlled by the entity, and that's why he, killed a bunch of women that looked like her, and then she's about to kill herself, and she gets talked out of it, and yeah, that's how I would explain that movie.
Okay, and that was on your first viewing. What about your second?
So my second viewing, because towards the end of the movie, I was really like, "Is that what that's about?" And I would say that this whole movie is not supernatural at all. That's just like a decoy, I guess. But it's more of a movie that is about the struggles of grief and depression, or I guess like mental illness in general.
Trauma.
Yeah, trauma. That'd be a better word for it.
Yeah, that's understandable. That's also how I felt about it. I also watched it twice. Um, and the main reason that I feel like it's about depression rather than the supernatural after viewing it, multiple times, is because while watching the movie, there are various things that don't quite line up with reality. And obviously, if it was supernatural, then that would be it. That would make sense as to, oh well, this is why it doesn't line up with reality.
Right.
But because of the way things are stated and the certain dialogue choices that the director made, it leads me to believe that this is actually a metaphor about depression or trauma or grief rather than an instance of supernatural elements, you know.
It's like a Lars von Trier movie, just not as good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, we'll review that movie later.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that the initial viewing of it and what most people are going to get out of it is that this is a really shitty supernatural movie because it doesn't give you closure at the end. I think a lot of people are going to be upset about that one. I could be wrong, but I was okay with it. I like open-ended movies, which the ending was definitely up for debate.
So the ending being as open it is, like the vagueness of it
Oh, super vague.
is actually part of the reason why my score is lower than it could be.
Really?
Yes, because in my opinion, it was intentionally left vague, not for like valuable reasons. It was left vague because the plot wasn't strong enough to continue without ruining the movie. Because had they confirmed it at the end, whether it was depression or something supernatural, there would no longer be a discussion needed for this movie. Like beyond, oh, I thought it was good or oh, I thought it was bad. It would just be, oh, well, it was a supernatural movie. It was a typical supernatural movie. And had it been confirmed that it was depression, I'm sorry.
You are like really hitting the table.
I'm trying super hard not to. But had it been
That's gonna be rough when my face hit that. I apologize in advance for anybody that's listening to that. I was not trying to kiss the microphone. It just kind of happened.
he was trying to lick it a little bit, but that's okay.
What?
You're trying to lick the microphone a little bit. That's okay.
I definitely was not.
Mm.
Anyway, back to the topic at hand.
Yeah, I apologize.
That's okay.
But no, I think that the part of the reason why this movie doesn't have like a super strong plot and why it had to keep itself vague is because there's nothing special about this movie other than the question of, is it depression or is it supernatural?
So I think that it states that it's a depression, that's what this is, and that it's not supernatural, at least in my opinion.
Okay.
I feel like the clues are there. So I'll just use this as an example because I finished it, but I finished The Sopranos.
Okay.
And that vagueness, I guess, at the end of The Sopranos for 21 years.
I don't think we can talk about that without spoiling. We don't want to spoil The Sopranos for anyone who hasn't seen it.
Okay, well, here's the deal. It's been out for such a long time, and you obviously know what the ending is.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen The Sopranos, you can turn off this podcast right now and pick it back up in about, I don't know, 30 seconds or whatever. And if you have, congratulations. But anyway, the vague ending that was, he dies, right?
Or does he?
No, he definitely does. And without, because what was the director, creator, David Chase? Is that his name?
I think so. Something Chase. Yeah, no, he came out years later and said, no, he's definitely dead. However, for the first 10 years after it ended, no one knew. No one knew for sure.
Okay, but here's the deal: all the clues were there.
No,
If you paid attention, you knew for sure before David Chase came out and said, in 2021, yeah, he's dead. You knew it because David Chase even said all the clues are in the final episode. Like,
I don't disagree. However, you don't know for sure.
you do. So this is one thing that I will defend because the clues are there. There is no question about it. Just like in this movie, there are clues that tell you this is what it's about, in my opinion, I think. Because I do feel like the ending by itself is left open and is very ambiguous because it wants to have these discussions.
Right.
And I think that that's okay, but I think that if you pay, because I watched it the second time, and when I watched it the second time with this mindset of this is a movie about depression, so many things made more sense.
Okay. Would you mind elaborating? Because I also thought it was about depression, and I saw things that in my mind signify that it was probably depression or in her head rather than something supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
But why specifically do you think that as well?
Okay, so the first thing that tells me that it's inside of her head is when she is I guess you could say she blacks out or whatever. Because the opening of the movie isn't really significant. I mean, it just shows that she's kind of upset, right?
Yeah, it's like a long flowing shots showing like specific things indicating that there's like loss and grief trying to convey like a sadness.
With a great soundtrack.
Yeah, that's the soundtrack and the acting in this movie are by far my favorite things.
Like the song "Under the Calvary Cross" by I don't remember who it is. I looked it up because I was like, this song's great. I really enjoyed it. And that was from like 1970 something.
I had no idea, but it was a really good song.
No, it was perfect, I think. But the first time that you kind of get this sense of it's all in her head is when the gunshot happens. When she's fixing to go to work and she's looking at the boat, and then there are the muddy footprints or whatever.
Yeah.
Which just miraculously disappeared.
Yeah.
So, but she hears the gunshot, and then the next time she's out there, when she stumbles across her neighbor throwing the tarp over, she asks Mel, yeah.
Who is portrayed by...
Well, you're looking that up.
It's Vondi Curtis Hall. I didn't look it up. I just had it written down on my notes.
Yeah, looking it up on your phone.
Well, on my notes on my phone.
Yeah, you still had to look it up. You didn't know off the top of your head, and that's okay. That is okay. But anyway, when she talks to him, she flat out asks him, "Were you shooting a gun this morning?" And he goes, "No," and kind of looked at her like, "What are you talking about, woman?"
So she clearly hallucinated the gunshot.
Yes. And I think that sets the tone for the rest of the movie, that everything else is inside of her head, because it just happened, right? She's in the stage of grief where she hasn't really fully accepted that it's happened. You could almost say that it's like denial. And I think the next scene that I just really loved was, I'm going to call it the Karen scene, because I thought that was perfect. It's so funny to me.
This is by far the funniest scene in the film, in my opinion.
And I don't even think it was supposed to be funny.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be funny.
Dude, it's like the most anti-Karen scene. I don't think there's another anti-Karen scene, and if there is, please let us know. But this one was funny.
Absolutely. So, for anyone who doesn't quite remember exactly what we're talking about, we're going to get a little bit more into it. So, it's the scene where she's sitting at the school.
And she's entering grades, and then I would say that she passes out because she's tired, right? And then when she wakes up to this knock on the door, on her computer are guns. She's researching guns, which is another reason why I think that it's about depression, because she blacks out and then is looking up, ways to end her life, basically.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Again, the clues are there. But there's this knock on the door, and this woman comes in, and she says, what was her kid's name?
Hunter.
Hunter. Yeah. I'm Hunter's mom, and then she kind of looks at her like, bitch, I don't know who Hunter is.
Yeah, we've got multiple hunters.
Oh, how many?
3.
Oh, anyway, and so she starts talking to her and is complete Karen, I guess, and goes, I just want to know why Hunter got a C. So then she tells him, he didn't do his assignment.
Didn't complete his presentation.
Right, because he was out that day.
Yeah, personal matter.
For a personal matter. And she was out on the day that she told him he could make it up because she was out for a personal matter as well. So as you can see, we all have personal matters. And that's when she asks her.
When the mother asks Rebecca Hall.
Yeah, this is when Rebecca Hall asks her, like, what did you come in here for? And she's like, so taken aback. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me? She goes, when you came in here, what did you want? And she goes, you want a B? Do you want an A? Because what a high school student gets in an elective speech class is not my top concern right now because my husband killed himself.
Yeah, shot himself in the head. She's super, super straightforward about it. Shot himself in the head last Thursday.
Yeah, took the boat out on the lake, took a handgun that I didn't even know that we owned, and shot himself. So what your kid makes is none of my concern. Do you want a B? And then she clicks and goes, he's got a B. And then she kind of like says, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. She goes, oh.
You're trying really hard. I guess I'll give you an A.
And then she goes, no, a B's fine. And she goes, a B it is. And then the Karen gets up and goes, I am sorry for your loss, and turns around and walks out. It was just really funny to me.
Yeah, like I said, I'm pretty sure that scene was intended to be funny because I laughed hysterically.
Right.
But I could just be, I could have a dark sense of humor. It's hard to say definitively.
I mean, either way, I thought it was funny, and it's a very anti-Karen scene. But
yeah.
But again, even that scene kind of points it to where she's blacking out, because sometimes when you get like super depressed, right, you just black out.
Yeah.
That happens. I think that's what is happening now.
I mean, like I said, I wholeheartedly agree that this is a movie that's a metaphor about depression and grief and, loss and
the supernatural
trauma.
element's just
Yeah, I think
there.
the supernatural element is a surface level thing that was put there to entertain people who don't want to look deeper into it, which, that being said, I would have been entertained even with the notion that it's supernatural.
Right. My score would have been lower, I think. But I'm the type of person that likes those more deep meanings, I guess.
Elevated horror, as Scream 5 would say.
Oh, yeah. Scream 5 would say elevated horror. That's what I enjoy. Like The Babadook. No, I actually don't like The Babadook, but that's not the point.
So actually, the Babadook is like one of the few movies that fall into that genre that before like it was announced you're supposed to like these because they're elevated, pretentious, higher quality horror.
Right.
That I was still like, oh yeah, this is a solid movie.
Isn't that movie about grief too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is another movie about grief.
Anyway, since we're getting onto that topic, I think the next scene that really kind of solidifies it for me is when they're at the bar and they're talking about, very inappropriate questions, basically, because they're all of her coworkers, that's the word I was looking for, are asking her about it, like, how did you not know?
Yeah, were there any signs?
And then she goes, oh, he left a letter. And the letter is the most vague thing in the world.
Super, super vague.
But it's also super, super specific.
Well, so I think that the letter is probably like I mean, we haven't really talked about it at this point, but I think this movie was like genuinely creepy.
Yes.
And I think the letter is one of the creepy things about this movie. Like, granted, as it gets explained further in the movie, it becomes less and less creepy and more of like a makes sense. But initially, because this is all before any spoilers are provided, and I think the letter's good. Do you remember specifically what it says?
There's nothing You were right. There's nothing out to get you.
Yeah, something like that. It's
Something.
you were right. There is nothing.
No
No
one's
one is after
coming. No one's
you.
after. Yeah,
You're safe now.
that was yeah. And it was just these 4 lines, very vague and specific, and everyone was kind of like, "That's it." She
Do you
goes,
know what it means?
"Yeah," and then she lies and says she doesn't. Um, and so going over in my head, I'm even wondering if that was actually him, or if she wrote that.
Yeah, I think that there's no evidence throughout the movie that indicates that she wrote it. But because of my interpretation of how the movie actually happened and what was real and what wasn't real within the realm of or within the universe of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that the letter probably wasn't actually written by him.
Because that's what I thought, because it was so specific, and she's the only person that would know it. And I mean, if
Other than him, because she says in the movie that she talked to him about what actually happened when she quote unquote died.
which was nothing, that's like when her heart stopped when she was in the accident.
Yeah.
And then so that scene where she talks about that, the next one where she's like drunk and comes home with her friend or whatever, um, that transition scared the shit out of me.
The transition where she's falling asleep on her lap and then suddenly wakes up.
Yes,
Yeah,
it was seamless though.
that was. I think that was probably the single scariest instance of the movie.
Yes, I will agree with that.
Like, I remember I had the volume up on my TV like moderately loud, and I was sitting in the room by myself, and it was like probably 3 a.m. All the lights were out, and it goes from being like quiet and calm to so loud that I like legitimately jumped a little. Not
Oh yeah.
because it was like a jump scare, but because of how like loud and jarring it was. I really liked that scene.
Well,
That
and how that
transition was awesome.
yeah, no, that was my favorite scene in the whole movie. And well, actually, I take that back. My second favorite scene. That whole sequence was really great, but the transition
Yeah,
is just
seamless.
seamless, right? And here's another reason why I think this whole thing is in her head more than anything and never happened. And I think that we're seeing the inside of her head and her thought processes at this time, because every dream, quote unquote, that she has gets progressively more in depth, more intricate,
More intense.
more intense, and stuff like that, right? And because of that, it's only more intense after she finds bits and pieces, right? I mean, she found the photo of the girl in the library that looked like her but wasn't her because she didn't have that blouse. And when she falls asleep, there are half naked women that are just running off of a cliff that look like her from behind, right?
Right.
So that dream didn't happen until after she figured that out, because she's obsessing over that.
Right. She found these photos that are allegedly of someone other than her
Right, which
that her husband took, and then she checks his computer and sees a whole bunch more of a whole bunch of different people
and then all of a sudden all these women are appearing
in her mind.
in her mind and running because that's what she thinks.
Yeah, that's what she's thinking about.
Right.
Which, once again, I would argue that the girl in the library photos, which there's no evidence to support this. This is just my own personal thoughts. I would argue that it might be a real girl, but I would say that she probably looks nothing like her and that the photo is actually of Rebecca Hall. And she's in such like a state that she's trying to make her husband, or her deceased husband into something else because it would make more sense as to why he killed himself.
Well, and I'm glad that you did bring that up, because one thing that her friend Claire, is that her name?
Yeah, Claire, played by Sarah Goldberg.
Love Sarah Goldberg. Anyway, actually I loved Rebecca Hall in this one. I think this was probably her best performance.
Yeah, I like The Awakening, which is another one of her previous movies.
Yeah, but she like really sold it. The range of emotions that she just goes through seamlessly for me.
Well, no, I agree that this is her best movie.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is The Awakening, in my opinion, was also super solid.
Okay.
and she acted super well in that. And in this, I think she acted even better. Like, I think she's probably one of the best like actors slash actresses, whatever she prefers.
Hmm.
Like in in horror modern day.
I think anything that she does is good, but I do think that she has a kind of niche in horror based off of the range of emotions that she just puts on. But she she does find some weird shit that her husband was doing. He found like he went and bought these occult books and had the reverse floor plans of the house, right? And on top of that, when she's having these dreams, that's when the house pops up. That's when she transfers to the other side of the lake in the boat for whatever reason, sees all this stuff, and then looks at the house, her house, and sees him with a bunch of different women.
Yeah.
But none of that happened until she thought about it, right?
Right.
And that's kind of why I'm like, this is 100% in her head. It's not a supernatural movie, even though he says, "You're dreaming." Like, I mean, I don't know. I could be completely wrong about that, but that's what I interpreted it as.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, I also interpreted it as this is likely a, a metaphor for like depression and stuff.
I mean, the only thing that I guess would be in error is she she sees the house, the reverse house or whatever, the shack is what I'm gonna call it, that he builds in that dream, and then the next day goes and searches for it. So that would be the only thing that kind of disproves what I said, I guess.
Well, I mean, so I don't know that that necessarily disproves it because if she lived with him, and in the instance that the other house or the shack actually exists, because I argue that it probably doesn't, but in the instance that it does actually exist, who's to say that her husband hasn't already told her that he was building it?
Well, because I don't think, I truthfully do not think that she knew about it based off of the interaction with the neighbor when he kind of walks up on her searching for it. And he knows what it is. He knows that there, well, actually, no, I take that back. He doesn't know because he says that I didn't know there was anything back there. I saw him walking that area with people and I thought it was you. And
Yeah,
then when I figured out it wasn't, he, came and told me, no,
but
don't say
never
this.
mentions the house.
No. So
So,
I can see how the house was not real. So if that's the case based off of what you said, then she manifested the house by looking at the floor plans.
yeah. So, what I would argue, and this is, there's no evidence to support it, this is just the perspective that I got from watching the film and how I interpret it.
This is what we think.
Yeah, the house isn't real. The bodies she ends up finding in the basement of the house aren't real. The girl from the library might be a real person, might have actually known her husband, but the interaction that she has at the house where she's admitting to the affair and all of that, I don't think any of that's real. I think that if any of that exists or happened, it happened in a very drastically different way, and we're just getting an unreliable narrator's perspective of what happened.
Right. Like when she goes, "Oh, was that you, Owen?" and he goes, "This isn't Owen," or whatever, and then
No,
gets her
I'm
head,
not Owen.
"I'm not Owen," and then gets her head smashed into the mirror, which propels her through the mirror into the reverse world or whatever. She sees all of these girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when she sees all of these girls, she sees them all die.
Yes.
That didn't happen until after she quote unquote saw the bodies or whatever. But if your theory is correct and the house didn't exist, this girl that she talks about didn't exist, because it also doesn't make sense to me. And this is where I had a little bit of an issue with it. Why did he decide with this girl that he was going to end his life and stop killing people?
Right.
Like that one, from everything that I know about serial killers, that just doesn't happen.
Right. So what I'm thinking is that he wasn't a serial killer. he was having an affair, cheating on her. It's potential that he was cheating on her with the girl from the library, and you know that is possible. But where I don't think it's possible is I don't think that he was killing people because there's no mention of it from like Claire or
Mm-hmm.
from anyone that they're missing people, that there are murders, that and I feel like that's something that would have been mentioned if that was like a legitimate thing that was happening. So I don't think that he was actually killing people. I think he might have been depressed. He might have, had his own personal mental issues, and that's what caused him to kill himself. And I think that that propelled Rebecca Hall's character's mental issues forward because she indicates that she's also had mental issues, which I don't actually know. I'm not, a psychologist or anything. But based on my perspective and what I saw, that's my interpretation of the movie and all the events.
So one thing that I will say is this reminded me a lot of Silent Hill 2.
Okay.
I took Owen's character as James's character, and spoilers for Silent Hill 2 if you haven't played the horror game from 2001. It's literally been out for 21 years. Okay, if you haven't played it by now, it's not really a spoiler, is it?
Uh,
Anyway, where he kills his wife Mary, and he kills her because he's mad and because he can't have sex with her, right? That's why. And I think that she says something when they're in the bar that maybe my demons finally caught up to him. I was struggling with these mental illnesses. Maybe I transferred them on to him or something. And I think he got upset with her because she was depressed. She was possibly suicidal. She was very upset about stuff, right? And that bled into his life and started to affect him. So I think the metaphor for that is just his anger and frustration towards her, because she kind of took his life away a little bit because now he's focusing on her and he's mad at her, and that's why he's killing women that look a little bit like her.
I definitely understand that perspective.
Could be completely wrong on that one, but if none of this is real and he didn't actually kill women, then that's what that represents.
Yeah, probably.
Because that's the only thing that makes sense to me. And everything has to make sense.
I mean, it doesn't have to. There are a lot of movies that things don't make sense in that are still like super solid movies that we just all, suspend our disbelief on.
That's fair. I can go with that one. But that's just what I thought on that one. Because and one thing that really drives it home for me that none of this is real is when she says, you're not Owen, and he goes, I was with you that night. Come back to me. And his name is Nothing because that's what she felt was nothing. So I think that her battle with this was the physical manifestation of depression, I guess. Well, it's not even physical, but like it's just manifesting itself, and that was her battling her depression, which really drives it home for me, I guess, when they're on the boat because he takes her to the place where her husband committed suicide, and it's like a blood moon.
Well, there are two separate moons in the skies at the same time.
Right. And it's red, and it's like the if you want to go the supernatural element, it would be a purgatory place almost.
Yeah.
Which didn't really make sense to me. I think that it'd be better, but I feel like that's in her mind. This is what's happening, and she's trying to recreate it because it flashes back to the real world where she has the gun that Owen used, and she's in the boat, basically recreating what he did. And then her friend's searching for her, and screams and yells her name, and that's when she kind of like is about to do it, and then hears her and turns, and Nothing goes, it doesn't matter, which I think was her depression saying, it doesn't matter what she's saying, none of this
It's
matters, end
all,
it.
yeah, exactly. It's all irrelevant. Kill yourself.
Right. And then she makes the decision to not do that and to go and live and move on. She comes to terms and accepts that Owen died. There is no reason for it. She's making up reasons because he didn't actually kill women, or maybe he did. I don't know. But there is no reason. He had his own demons that he was fighting. He never got over it. And she knows that there are people out there like her friend Claire that love and support her, and that is why she is going to move on.
Yeah,
Because the final shot that I loved was the water.
where you can see the silhouette.
Yeah, and then did you
Mel.
say Mel is his name?
Mm,
Said, "What are you looking at? There's nothing there." And she goes, "I
I
know."
know.
That was the moment where the movie ends, and I was like, "Oh, she overcame her depression. That's what that is. Her depression is there, but it's not."
So in my mind, that was her recognizing that, it's depression and that she has the ability to overcome it. She just needs to have support from her friends.
Yeah, it ends on a very, very good note.
Yeah.
Like, for being a super sad, tragic movie, I guess, it ends on a really uplifting, happy note, and I'm glad they ended it like that.
Well, I think them choosing to end it like that is why it is a metaphor about depression instead of supernatural.
Right. Or we could just be really, really reaching into this.
Yeah, I could be totally stuck in an incorrect perspective,
Right. I mean,
but
I would like to think it's about depression. So if you watch this movie and you think that it's about depression, let us know. If you don't think it's about depression, also let us know.
yeah, we've got a Facebook group now. You can find it by searching for Two Idiots One Podcast on Facebook.
That is the
Um,
number 2 and the number 1, not spelled out.
yes, all numerical 2 and 1, not
Not TOWNE.
yes. But if you find that, you can get on there and you can make a little posty post telling us that you think we're right or wrong.
And if you tell us, the only thing that I ask is that if you disagree with anything that we said, please do not just go, "You're wrong."
Please elaborate on to why you believe that,
Yeah, and same thing with the podcast. We're doing something that you don't like. Just tell us you don't like it, and then explain why.
and we will do everything in our power to correct it
Yeah.
if it's an issue that we agree with.
Yeah, so don't get into the Facebook group and then just go, "Oh, you're wrong because blah 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 blah." Like, okay, well, that's your opinion. This is my opinion, and let's talk about it.
Exactly.
So that'll be nice. And then we're in the process of creating social media accounts that you can follow, which will also be Two Idiots One Podcast.
Yes, or a variation of that. I'm not sure if the Twitter handle is available, and I'm not sure about like Instagram either.
That's okay. We will buy it from the person, whoever has it. We will go to them and say, "You don't know me. I don't know you, but I need this."
I'll send you bathwater.
Yes, it'll be like a teaspoon of bath water. But if you don't get that, good. That's all I can say on that one is if you don't get that reference, good. So what would be your recommendations? If someone said, "I liked The Night House on HBO," what would you recommend them?
So, if someone told me that they really like this movie and that they want other movies like it, I would recommend other, quote unquote elevated horror. I would recommend like The Awakening. I would recommend oh wow, I'm blanking.
I mean, I would recommend Silent Hill 2, almost as like a video game. And honestly, one that I really liked and thought about it was Alan Wake. Did you ever play that game?
No, but I've heard of it.
Okay, yeah, I would. And I might be completely wrong on that one. That one might be a stretch, but this movie just really reminded me of that game. So
There are a couple movies that this movie like had similar feelings to,
like
but
the Babadook.
yeah, like the Babadook, anything about like grief and depression, most like quote unquote elevated horror. Um, but yeah, I would recommend stuff like that. I don't have any like super specific recommendations because this movie is
kind of broad.
well, it's kind of unique. Like
Well, it's unique, but it's also broad because with the way that we interpreted it could be completely different than the way that somebody else interprets it. So that way, our recommendations are like, well, that's not what that's about.
exactly. So if you saw this as like a supernatural movie and you want like more intense supernatural movies, you could always go to like the Conjuring series. You could do like Paranormal Activity, which obviously Paranormal Activity is shot differently. It's
It's a found footage.
yeah, it's more of like a found footage style. But if you're viewing this as like a depression movie, my ability to recommend things narrows drastically because I don't know very many movies where that is the subject. Have you seen A Ghost Story on Netflix?
I have not.
So maybe that movie because it's also got like a is it depression, is it supernatural feeling.
So if you want the best depression movie, in my opinion, is Antichrist by Lars von Trier.
Oh yeah,
But it's also there are certain scenes in that
it's a little
movie.
dark.
Oh, that was the depression time where he wrote that Nymphomaniac, which is that's also a movie about. I would say that's a movie about depression, honestly.
Yeah,
So I mean,
and it has actors in common because the girl from the library also starred in Infomaniac.
that was your hard fact.
Yeah, that was it. That was for sure a hard fact.
That's for sure a hard fact right there. But yeah, I mean, I would say that that's. I mean, she does battle depression in that movie, but that's also 4 hours long. Because you can't just watch part one and not watch part two. You got to watch the whole thing in one sitting.
I didn't watch them like that, but I understand that perspective.
Because they just kind of like go together.
Yeah.
But it's one movie. It's like when you watch Kill Bill.
Yeah, well,
Like Kill Bill's a movie.
Exactly. You have to watch both volumes at the same time, or what are you doing with your life?
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, let's talk about some other hard facts. Because I like hard facts.
Okay.
What you got for us, Bailey?
So, I don't know how to pronounce this, and
love that.
I've been trying to figure out how to pronounce it. I've even like Googled how to pronounce it, and when I hit the button and it pronounced it, it wasn't pronouncing it in a way that helped me pronounce it.
That's usually how Google works.
So, in this movie, there's a thing called a Cardroia, and it's a Welsh turf maze.
So, a turf maze?
Yes. So, based on my understanding,
Based on your understanding of the Welsh turf maze.
Yes.
Did you say Welsh?
Yes, like
Like-
WELSH.
You know, the Welsh are good people.
Yeah. But
I guess. I don't know.
for anyone who actually like wants to look up this word so that they can like spell it or like try to figure out how it's pronounced and pronounce it properly, or if they want to do anything like that.
And we will also I just want to apologize to Wales and any, Welsh people, because obviously we are not Welsh and do not know how to pronounce Welsh words. But if you are Welsh and listening to this and you do know how to properly pronounce it, please let us know.
Yes. But it's spelled Caerdroia.
Ooh.
And I'm pretty confident that that's what the like second house or the unfinished house or the reverse house was supposed to represent, and like the whole world that she traveled in.
Was that?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. So I have a hard fact for you.
Okay.
So when she's flipping through Owen's phone, the first picture that she opens up on are the two dudes laughing. Okay, are you ready for this? Because I thought this was like really cool when I found it. But when she's doing that, that's actually the film's screenwriters.
That's interesting. I was unaware of that.
Yeah, so you look at it and you're like, why are there these two random dudes? Boom, Easter egg.
I do love me some Easter eggs.
I do too, and the fact that it's those guys that wrote it just makes it even better for me. But anyway, what else you got?
So for hard facts, that's about all I have. For facts that were interesting, I couldn't find very much about this, which this might just be my perspective, but I've noticed that in most newer movies, there aren't as many like good, solid like Easter egg / facts, and I believe that's because they aren't old enough to have a lore built around them.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, no, actually, I'll completely agree with that one, because there's a ton if you look up, like Halloween or whatever,
Halloween, Friday the 13th,
Nightmare on Elm Street.
even like Maniac Cop.
Yeah. Oh.
Like,
Oh man. So funny story. I'm just gonna interrupt this real quick. I was talking to somebody about Maniac Cop the other day, and that is something that I was like, yeah, I've never seen it, and he goes, you need to watch it.
all three of them.
There's three of them.
At least three.
We were talking about the movie that he did in between, because it was Maniac and then this movie. I don't remember what it was. It was in that grindhouse exploitation, and then Maniac Cop was the one that he did after it. Oh God, I can't remember what that was. I'm gonna have to look that up. Anyway, sorry, that was a side note. On that, I don't know. I just But anyway, that'll lead us into Bailey's Babbles. So, Bailey, what you babbling about today?
All right. So I actually wanted to talk about what um what specifically you look for in film in general that you I'm trying to find the right way to word this. What specifically do you look for in films that hold significant meaning to you, like something that you've watched multiple times and that you will watch again, like what tropes specifically are in them that have you noticed that you like? And we don't rehearse this stuff beforehand, so he's completely off guard by this.
Yeah, I'm completely off guard. I was not prepared for this one. I guess I wouldn't necessarily say tropes and stuff because when I look at Pulp Fiction, right? The reason that I love Pulp Fiction so much is the dialogue. Dialogue for me is a real big important thing. When I'm watching a movie, if the dialogue is not there, then I can't be emotionally invested into it. Um, Also, if it's over the top, stupid, there are some of those because I love grindhouse movies, like grindhouse exploitation stuff like that. But I love those because they're so bad they're good. So, but that's like my little uh, thing I'm not proud of. But I'm gonna be proud of it. I like exploitation movies. I think they're great. The other thing that I look at is pacing
Pacing.
because pacing is really big for me. Does it start slow and then give me instances where it catches my attention, or is it just completely boring the entire time and then all of a sudden hits you in the face? Because I don't like those.
I feel that. Well, so that's something that I really liked about The Night House, which I recognize that we're not really talking about it anymore. We've moved past that, but I thought the pacing in that movie was pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's another reason why it has a 4. It's not like a 5 because I want to reserve that for the movies that I think are the best, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but the pacing, the atmosphere and tone, symbolism is also a really big thing with me. I mean, my favorite video game is Silent Hill 2, and that's littered with symbolism. So a movie like this resonates with me a little bit more, which I'll probably go back and watch it again because of that. And anytime you have stuff like that, that's what I'm looking for because it gives us these discussions of this is how I interpreted it. What did you think? Um, I guess that would be it. Unless it's like a comedy, then it's just got to be funny. Well, like the simple answer.
No, I mean I pretty much agree with you. The biggest thing for me in like a lasting movie is pacing and how do I feel watching it? Like if it's a comedy, does it make me like legitimately laugh, or is it like that ha ha type of funny, or is it like, oh, I'm uncontrollably laughing, this is a funny bit?
And if it's a horror movie, is it actually scaring me?
Well,
Am I?
so I don't look for like actually being scared
I do.
because I very rarely see something and I'm like, oh, this is actually scary. Like there are times that it's jarring, like the transition in The Night House that I was talking about.
Right.
Jarring, not actually scary. I can recognize how it could be scary for some people, and I know I jumped during it, but I didn't jump out of fear. I jumped because I was jarred.
Okay, so what about action movies?
I don't like action movies generally. If I watch an action movie and I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is solid." There have to be elements from a different genre in there that I like. For example, most Marvel movies I don't like in the action sense, but they're funny. Like most of them have enough comedy strewn in that I'm like, okay, this is okay for a shitty action movie.
Well, and I don't even like Marvel movies because they're action movies. I like them because it's a comic book movie. Like, and I guess that's the difference. So, for instance, if I watch a comic book movie, I want it to be as accurate to the comics as possible. And if it's not, if they do something that's like, take Daredevil, not the Netflix show that was great, the Ben Affleck one, that was awful because Ben Affleck was terrible, the script was terrible, everything about the movie was terrible, right? But then you look at the Netflix one, and it's got more elements of the comics, and that's what I like. So with action movies, I basically really enjoy the fight scenes, but I also love those old kung fu movies, the samurai movies and stuff like that. So if it's an action film, it's got to have a real good action sequence in it, like the hunt. The final fight scene was great.
No, I agree with that.
That's the kind of stuff I look for. If an action movie doesn't have at least one scene where I go, that was choreographed amazingly, I go, it probably wasn't that good. So
That's fair.
I don't know. I'm not really the biggest action fan, but
I would say it's probably my least favorite genre of genres that I actually watch. And I say genres that I actually watch because I generally don't even watch romance movies.
I mean,
Like, I'll watch some rom-coms,
rom-coms are good.
but just like straight like romance / love stories, I'm not about it. Unless it's a porno. I can get into some porn.
Well, that's definitely not a love story
I mean,
or romance.
ah.
That one's a little bit debatable, but it's not a love story, all right? I'm trying to think of what else I'm looking for. I don't know. I guess that's it
Yeah.
on that one.
No, I mean that's about what I expected.
Like I'm trying to go through it and not just give you that. I it
It just has to resonate with me.
yeah, it's gotta resonate with me. It's gotta have lots of explosions.
Boom boom kachoo.
If there's not at least 17 gunfights in it, it's not a good movie.
Well, and they have to have the audio for the firearms, right? Like, I hate it when they're shooting and it sounds like ka instead of pa.
Okay, so speaking about that, I love John Wick. That might be like the best action movie of all time.
I don't qualify John Wick as an action movie because it's got Keanu Reeves in it.
But it is an action movie. But I think the difference that separates that from like other action movies
Is
for me.
he's a national treasure?
No, that's Nicolas Cage.
He's also a national treasure.
But no, it's because he actually took time to learn how to train, and everything that he does is real. That's how someone would really do it. And I even counted the number of bullets every time he fires the gun, and it is accurate.
That makes sense.
Because I know that, like, I think that's my biggest complaint about action movies is that they will so I'll take Evil Dead, or not Evil Dead, it's Army of Darkness, right? I know a thing or two about guns, okay? And I didn't know that a double barrel sawed off shotgun can shoot 4 times without having to be reloaded.
I didn't know that either.
I didn't know it. I was like, oh, you put 2 shells in it because it's double, right? No, it's got 4. It's got 4 shells. So, but that movie is good for other reasons.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's more like nostalgia, I guess, at that point, but it's also super funny. But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else that you want to talk about on Bailey's Babbles?
Nope, I think that's all we have for you today. This has been Bailey.
Well, hold on, Bailey.
Oh,
Don't
I'm
get ahead of
sorry.
yourself. We got to
Oh.
tell them what's next week.
Oh, we already told them what was next week.
Oh, we did? What is it?
I don't remember.
Exactly,
But
because we didn't tell them.
Oh, did we not?
No, because the movie next week is Unthinkable.
Oh, yes. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I'm incorrect. We did not tell you guys this.
So what he's referring to is the next one that we do next week, or I guess by the
The
time you
week
listen to
after
this video,
next.
the week after next, is going to be Friday the 13th on Friday the 13th. But this is Friday the 13th part 3
Yeah, the best one in my opinion.
because it's not. But we'll get into that in 2 weeks when we sit down and record it for our very special Friday the 13th special.
Or Friday the 13th extravaganza.
We gotta have like intro music and stuff for that one. Some spooky themes. You wanna get like tattoos?
Yeah, we should get matching Friday the 13th tattoos on our foreheads.
Ooh, and then record this and be like, this is what we did today.
Yeah.
All right, so now roll us out, Bailey.
All right. This has been Two Idiots, One Podcast, and I'm Bailey.
And I'm Taylor, and thank you so much for listening.
Have a great day.
Bye.